Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you for being here today. My name's Leo, and I'm going to be talking about two subjects: multidimensional design and the metaphysics of touch. Okay, so just to explain each one, multidimensional design is concerned with elevating the quality of creative ideas by accessing different dimensions of the mind and or of the universe. And metaphysics of touch, that's concerned with everything to do with touch beyond the physical. And that idea was born from when I was learning Indian head massage, and they just taught us physical techniques, and they didn't explain the importance of what the mind is doing, which is more important, because anyone can learn physical techniques, but what the mind is doing while you're offering a massage is even more important. Okay? I do work from notes because I'm rather dyslexic and I can't remember a lot, so it doesn't mean I don't know what I'm talking about, but I need prompts. Okay? And the reason that the way that these two elements are connected, there's two different presentations here, and I've combined them specially for this event. And the way that they're connected is simply that through developing these more creative techniques, I've applied them to what I learnt when I was learning massage, and that has developed some interesting ideas which I'm going to share with you. So multidimensional design was an idea that I came up with at university. I was studying product design, three-dimensional design, and I was thinking about the title of the course that I was doing, three-dimensional design, and I just thought, well, what about four-dimensional design and five-dimensional design? And I went to my tutor and said, for my major project in my final year, I want to design a five-dimensional object. And he told me that I was fucked up and I should have a year off. So he would only let me study that as a written dissertation. He wouldn't let me design it or to investigate the idea. And that was a long time ago. So even in a design degree, creativity was being suppressed by universities, maybe through fear, I don't know. And it's even worse today. I know that children are being told they're not allowed to question what they're being taught at school, and they're cutting arts lessons. I know one child that only has one art lesson per month. Like children are being discouraged to think, okay? And this presentation's a lot about elevating creativity. So, yeah, I remember when I was at university, it was the first time that I heard of the phrase, think outside the box. You've probably all heard that before. And I remember at the time thinking, what fucking box? Because as far as I'm concerned, there is no box. And I felt like I was put in a box when I was studying my degree. And I just feel that, particularly in the corporate world, thinking outside the box just means being slightly more, producing something slightly less predictable than the usual old tosh anyway. Okay? Right. Oh, I've got an interesting quote here from Osho. Does everyone know Osho? No. He's a mystic. So I'll just read you this quote from him. Creativity is the greatest rebellion in existence. If you want to create, you have to get rid of all conditionings. Otherwise, your creativity will be nothing but copying. You can be creative only if you are an individual. You cannot create as part of the mob psychology. The mob psychology is uncreative. It lives a dragging life. It knows no dance, song or joy. It is mechanical. The creator cannot follow the well-trodden path. He has to search out his own way. He has to inquire in the jungles of life. He has to go alone. He has to be a dropout from the mob mind, from the collective psychology. The collective mind is the lowest mind in the world. Even so-called idiots are superior to the collective idiocy. But the collectivity has its own bribes. It respects people, honours people if they go on insisting that the way of the collective mind is the only right way. So that really resonates with me, and I just discovered that quote recently, and I thought it was a good thing to include in here. So I'm going to get on to the bones of my presentation, and I've got a definition of what I mean by multidimensional design. So it's designing or creating using techniques that allow access to the unconscious dimensions of the mind and possibly other dimensions of the universe, or a universal mind. And the aim is to generate more original ideas that are less influenced by what we perceive with our five senses or what we see around us, ideas that have already been realized, basically. So it's all about elevating creativity and generating more unique, interesting, valuable, inspiring and meaningful ideas, which can actually be applied to anything. Okay, so it's not just about visual output. So, interesting question, what is creativity? A few definitions are generating or using original ideas, doing something that has never been done before, and bringing something into existence. And this is a quote from my thesis at university, one of my definitions of creativity. Creativity can be anything that is not normal, and normal can be anything that we do not find shocking or that does not make us stop and think. If a designer were able to install a submarine astroport within a flying teapot in dimension 21, they would be superhuman. But if they were to think about doing it, they would be creative. Like a lover, a creative dares to be a fool. The paradox is that the best creative solutions don't come into existence without absurdity, but they don't work without reality. And reality limits possibilities. I do enjoy a paradox. So recently I was offered the opportunity to go and live in a small seaside town called Sheringham in Norfolk. And one of the things that I was told as an encouragement to go there, I live in Brighton, so it's a big city, I thought it might be nice to go somewhere quieter. And I was told there's a thriving artists community there, and I did go to visit, but what I realised was being an artist doesn't make a person creative. So I went to Sheringham and all I was seeing was landscape art. So my idea of creativity is something that hasn't been done before. So I did go and spend a week there and just felt quite uninspired by it all, because there's a big difference between art and creativity can be about absolutely anything. It's not even about producing images, it's anything that's not normal. And I actually think one of the most creative things I've ever witnessed in my life was September the 11th. Even though it was destructive, it's so shocking that it's creative. So what is an idea? That's a very difficult thing to define. what's the chemical composition of an idea? That's really weird. Because in order for ideas to exist, there has to be physical things in existence. So does an idea actually somehow have a chemical composition? Is chemistry involved in it? Probably immediate I would think no, because an idea isn't a physical thing, but it's just an interesting idea to wonder, is there a chemical composition of an idea? What's the chemical composition of a shadow? Well, I had trouble trying to come up with an answer for that, but then I realised it's actually made of photons, because it's a contrast of luminosity. So a shadow does actually have a chemical composition. And light is known to exist in a dual reality. It's a wave and a particle. So it does have a chemical composition as well, it appears. Where do ideas come from? Are they generated within our brain? I think not. I do know that no scientist has ever located the storage of ideas within the brain. So I don't think ideas are generated in the brain. I think we pull them from outside ourselves. Okay? And does an idea exist before it's thought of? I think so. I believe that anything that can ever exist on Earth, the potential for it to exist was always there. So when we have an idea, we're tapping into something that already existed or had the potential to exist. So it's like there's a pool of ideas and we tap into them, and the deeper we go and the techniques we use for tapping into ideas, the more creative what we produce will be. That was an idea I just came up with at university, but then later in life, after I had an awakening experience in Australia, I learned a lot of new things, and I discovered something called the Akashic Records. I don't know if anyone's heard of that. It's a definition of it is it's a compendium of all universal events, thoughts, words, emotions, and intent ever to have occurred in the past, present, or future, in terms of all entities and life forms, not just human. So it's the idea that everything that can exist, will exist, ever will exist, already does. And then there's the idea that time is an illusion, which means everything that's going to happen has already happened. So that's why I believe that we don't necessarily create ideas in our head. They're already all there. Everything that can ever exist already exists. We just realise some of those ideas. Okay? So ideas are mysterious. Creativity is very mysterious. And consciousness is the most mysterious thing known to man. The central nervous system is the most complex thing known in the universe, known to science, and it may now be becoming more complex. Well, it is, because of AI. We're merging with technology now, so it's becoming even more complex. So we're attaching something we don't even understand, consciousness. Nobody really knows what it is, and we're attaching it to our AI and making it even more complex. The trouble with that is, I believe that AI may kill our creativity, because for me it's a form of postmodernism. Postmodernism was an awful era in design where designers were recycling old visual codes and putting a modern slant on them. And an example is Las Vegas. You might see a mock classical architecture designed building with neon lights on it and bright colours. A very stark example of postmodernism is tackiness. So a hamburger stand is designed in the shape of a hamburger. That's not creative at all. The idea is coming from the visual perception of a hamburger. It's just so obvious. So postmodernism I found very tacky and not a pleasant period of design aesthetics. Now we're going into AI, where we're not going to have control over what is being produced. It will be coding and algorithms. So I have friends who have been posting images they believe they have produced, saying, look what I produced. And I'm like, what? No, you didn't. You typed a few words into a program and it produced this image. That's not creative. And is that coming from your heart? Okay. The Mission Impossible movie on the subject of AI, has anyone seen it? The new Mission Impossible movie? Okay. So within that movie and the last James Bond movie, it's quite common and well known that Hollywood reveals what's really happening. So in the Mission Impossible movie, we have, you know, it could be complete fiction, but it makes sense to me. We're given the message in that movie that AI is the current manifestation of the dark entity that has been controlling the universe until now. It's the current manifestation of it. And superpowers are now going to be fighting over who gets to control it, and that's going to lead to war. So that's the message we're getting in the Mission Impossible movie. And if you combine that with the latest James Bond movie, you see the whole picture, the last James Bond movie. So I won't go into that one as well, but there's just something to think about. Okay, so what is consciousness? One way I like to look at that is, I've already said no one knows what consciousness is. We can say, okay, it's awareness, but what is it really? We don't know, because consciousness is all we have to perceive anything. And this little joke explains it quite clearly, which I heard, where one person says to another, how's life? And the person replies, I don't know, I've got nothing else to compare it to. So, you know, it's a really good point. And if we don't know what consciousness is, and all we've got to perceive that we are conscious is consciousness, then how can we know what it is? I have since heard the idea that there is something beyond consciousness, above it, but I don't know what it is. There's just another idea to confuse you a bit more. You might end up as confused as I am at the end of this, if you're lucky. Right, what's next? The spark that generates consciousness is the most mysterious thing in the universe. So the space between our physical bodies and either our minds or the spirit world, the space between that connects those two things, the thing that gives us life, that's an interesting concept within alchemy. It's the space in between. Extremely mysterious. It's difficult just thinking that there is a spirit world. Some people say they can see it and feel it, but how are we connected to that spirit world? Some people call it a silver cord, as just as a symbol that connects us, and it could be called the Holy Ghost in Christianity, Father, Son and Holy Spirit, or Holy Ghost. So you've got the physical, the spiritual, and the connection in between. That's just another analogy. So on the subject of alchemy, alchemy is all about transformation. The common idea of alchemy, whenever I ask anyone what is alchemy, they'll say, oh, it's turning base metals into gold. And it is, but it's actually a lot more complex than that, because that's just a symbol for what alchemy really is, which is turning body into soul. Okay? And the Philosopher's Stone is symbolic as well. So it's not necessarily a physical thing, but it can be. But it's also, the Philosopher's Stone is, by the way, all of this is not, I'm not presenting this as fact, because that's impossible. This is all ideas I'm sharing, and I don't even necessarily believe it all. I don't use the word belief. I'm just sharing with you because they're interesting ideas. So don't think I'm trying to say this is the way it is, because that's not what I'm into. Where was I?
Philosopher's Stone.
Oh, that's it, Philosopher's Stone, yeah. So it's not necessarily a physical thing. The Philosopher's Stone is knowledge of how to turn body into soul, okay? And it's also regarded to be the elixir of life. So it is regarded to be a physical thing as well, a substance that you can produce. It's an enlightened atom which, when induced, interacts with your body in a metaphysical way, inducing enlightenment in the person that ingests it. Okay? So there's some different ideas about what alchemy or deeper ideas about what alchemy and the Philosopher's Stone are. And then there is the idea that the universe is actually projected out of our minds, okay? So what's happening out here is projected out of my mind, and what you're experiencing is projected out of your mind, and then some very sophisticated editing software is joining both of our experience together and making us think that we are interacting in an external environment. That's another mind-bending idea. But I do actually think that's what's happening. I think that's the way it works. Has anyone know what a macabre is? No? It's otherwise known as it's a shame I do have a visual presentation, but technology drives me nuts and it always lets me down, so I decided not to do a PowerPoint presentation. But a macabre is a star tetrahedron. A tetrahedron is a four-sided pyramid. So it's not like the Egyptian pyramids where you have a square base and four equilateral triangles. It's it's made up of, it has a triangular base, isosceles triangle, and three faces. So there's four faces altogether. That's a tetrahedron. A star tetrahedron is where you turn one way, one the other, and put them together. So you have one pyramid pointing up and one pyramid pointing down. And it's a more sophisticated version of Solomon's seal, which is commonly seen on the Israeli flag now. So what you've really got there is one arrow pointing up, one pointing down, which refers to alchemy, as above, so below, and in the middle, that's where the magic happens. Okay? So that's the macabre. Now the subject of magic. Two different types, well, there's loads of different types of magic, but two common types. You could divide it into two categories. One is illusory magic, which is what the stage magician does, using illusion to hide, make you think something's happened. And real magic, which is commonly thought of to be very complex and that not many people have access to it, but everyone here in this room is engaged in magic every day, because having the idea that I need to get some money, and then going to the cash machine and drawing some money out, and then having the money in your hand, that is magic, because what you've just done is turned a thought, an idea, a concept that we don't even know what it is, something that doesn't physically exist, and we've turned it into something physical, money, just by having the thought. So magic is actually very simple, okay? It gets more complicated when you want to make supernatural things happen. But on a basic level, we do practice magic every day. Everyone does. Another interesting idea is the idea of free will, which is very much related to this idea of, are ideas generated in our head or from outside of us? Are they really our ideas? Are we free to develop ideas and concepts in our brain, or do we draw them in from externally? And free will, I've got a great definition of it here. It's actually a paradox. One way of describing it is whether or not we have free will. So I can make the decision to raise my hand up here. So I've got free will to do that. However, I was going to do it anyway. It was already decided that that was going to happen, because if time is an illusion and everything that's going to happen has already happened, I had already done that. Okay, so it appears I've made the decision to do it, and I did, but it was going to happen anyway. So it's a paradox. Okay, is creativity divine? So, if we are able to develop ideas within our own minds, would that make us divine? Well, yeah, I guess so. So again, it's relating to the idea of, do we develop our own ideas, or are we drawing them in from outside? Okay, so here are a few ideas about where ideas can come from. So first of all, the three-dimensional world, so what we see through our five senses. So anything we see in this room could influence us with another idea. Okay, that's the most common influence of generating ideas. And that's what typically leads to uncreative ideas, copying things we've already seen. The next level is the personal unconscious. So that is our own unconscious that is influenced by all the things we have experienced in our life to date. So everyone in this room has got a different personal unconscious, and that will affect the way you develop ideas and the way you think. Okay? So it's a deeper level than five sense perception. It's a deeper influence. The next level is the collective unconscious, which starts to get very interesting. A definition is that ideas are influenced by inherited and shared aspects of the psyche containing archetypes. Okay, so this is a Jungian concept, and through his work with mentally disturbed patients, he noticed common hallucinations between each of them when they had separate lives. Why did they all have the same all have the same hallucinations? And it was that enabled him to come up with the concept that we do have a collective unconscious, and the basis of the collective unconscious is the archetype. And in Jungian terms, the archetype is an instinct. So we have an instinct to design and create in a certain way, and I will show you some examples of how we do that. The concept was also based on empirical evidence gathered by looking at symbols produced by different cultures all over the world before they had the ability to communicate with each other. So in Mexico, Indonesia and Egypt, architecture, they were all using the same symbols before they were actually able to communicate with each other physically and meet each other. So that's more evidence of a collective unconscious. So it's also described as a universal code written into the fabric of space that we all tap into. So here are some images that explain it. So this is just a draft of a pyramid. The top of the pyramid, you'll see that there are 3 openings, doors or windows, one large one in the middle, 2 smaller ones either side. And that is common in ancient Egypt, Indonesia and Mexico. Lots of other places as well, but they're just examples. So why did those cultures all produce this triptych architecture? It's called triptych. 1 large entrance, 2 smaller entrances either side. And you will see triptych art in religious buildings, 1 large painting and then 2 smaller ones beside it, and they all work together. Okay, it's called a triptych art. And on a lot of Christian churches, you will see 1 large entrance, 2 smaller entrances either side. Okay, now that I'm pointing this stuff out to you, you will notice it all the time. It's not just religious architecture, it's often on any special buildings, particularly government buildings, okay? And temples, more commonly you might see something like this. You have 1 large turret, 2 smaller turrets either side. It's always in 3s. In churches, the main stained glass window, you will often see 1 large circle, 2 smaller ones below it. And this is called this design of window is extremely common in small village churches. You'll see it on just about every church. But until it's pointed out to you, I never thought about it until I was told. It's on every church. Why? Why are they all designed like this? 2 lancet windows and an oculus at the top. Okay, why? Here's the answer. So when you join up the top of each of the points of you get this obtuse triangle, okay, on all of them. Okay. That one. Again. Okay. And again here. Okay. So, what is that triangle for? Why is it there? It's a symbol hidden by Masons. Okay, again, this is an idea, I'm not saying it's a fact. This is theory. And what it symbolises is the 3rd eye. Okay, so it's relating to the 3rd eye. There's another example, a prime example in classical architecture. So what it's saying is, so these 2 windows represent the masculine and feminine energy, male and female, the sun and the moon. And the oculus at the top, it's not called an oculus for for no reason. Oculus means eye, okay? So it's the 3rd eye. So the message is, by balancing the masculine and feminine elements of our own bodies, that is a method by which we can open the 3rd eye, okay? And the 3rd eye is the chakra from which the dark artists operate, okay, from here. So they're hiding that message within their architecture. And I have thought to myself, why do they hide these symbols in plain sight. And I've actually come to the conclusion they're taking the piss out of us. So it's like, we've got this knowledge, you're all stupid, we're putting it in your face and you don't even realise. That's why I reckon they do it, it's power. Okay? But the funny thing about this, opening the third eye, in the New Age movement, that's the big goal. Yoga and all sorts of methods of opening the third eye. Everyone wants to open their third eye. I remember when I first had an awakening experience in Australia, I was at it. And it can actually be quite dangerous. And it may not be good for you. Where we really want to be is the crown, at the crown chakra. And apparently you open that by opening your heart. Again, this is hearsay, I don't know anything about it, just ideas. But there you go. Oculus, so the eye. Notice the word oculus also, how close that word is to occult, which means hidden. Okay? Hidden knowledge. Right, what else have we got here? The next level is the astral plane. Where another place that ideas can come from. So we got to the collective unconscious. We've come from 5 sense perception to personal unconscious, then the collective unconscious, and then now we're at the astral plane, which Aldous Huxley calls the antipodes of the mind. And this is somewhere I have not been much, and I don't know a lot about, but it's often accessed through hallucination and drugs, that kind of thing, which all I've ever done is I've tried a hash cookie once, and it made me hallucinate, and what I saw was unbelievable, mind-blowing, and I thought if I could put this into a video, I'd be a millionaire. So I have seen what is there, and it's absolutely incredible. It's not influenced by anything I've seen in my life or my personal unconscious, so it really is another world. So that's why the Beatles' music was so incredible. They experimented with hallucinogens. So they tapped into this other world. And that's where you are most likely to see and experience things that cannot be explained by anything that you experience in the physical world. Okay? Dali's paintings are a typical example. Apparently he didn't take drugs, but he was a paranoid something or other, and it gave him hallucinations. So you've got images of elephants with really long legs and obelisks on their back. But even then, they're all things that you can still relate to the 3D world. You've got an elephant, you've got long legs, and you've got an obelisk. But put them together and you've got something weird, but it's still not new. Right, and then there's the concept of the reducing valve, which Aldous Huxley came up with. The idea that we have a valve within our mind that protects us from this other world, which, if all that information came in, we would go mad, and some people do. That valve is opened up by hallucinogens, and that's when all these ideas come in. Right, so I'm going to move on now to explain some techniques by which you can bypass conscious influence and enhance creativity, which can be applied to anything, obviously not just visual art. One of them is hypnosis, so you can self-hypnotize or pay someone to put you under and then get them to guide you through a method of developing ideas while you're under hypnosis. And it's likely to be a lot more creative than your conscious ideas. I actually tried that myself and it did work. Visualization and meditation, so that's a deep conscious state. So in visualization, you can, for example, meditate and make the affirmation that you're joining your mind with Great Spirit or the universal intelligence, for guidance and to give you ideas. And one method I've used in the past is just visualize myself sitting under a tree. I pull an apple off it, hold it in front of me, and then just let it turn to, it kind of disappears in a puff of smoke. And then as the smoke clears, an object or symbol appears, and then I use that symbol or idea in whatever I'm doing. So that's an example of how to use meditation and visualization. There is also a method you can use for manifestation using magic symbols or sigils. So you can go into a meditation and then visualize something you want to create. It could be a little project you're working on, or it could be your ultimate goal of your life. You visualize it, really feel it, and then wait for a symbol to appear, and you make a note of that symbol, and then you put that symbol on your bathroom mirror, draw it on your hand, get it tattooed, put it everywhere. And the way that works is, you may have heard of the idea of the secret law of attraction. Nearly everyone's heard of that, yeah? That idea is it appeals to greed and laziness, because they're trying to get across the idea that you can sit in an armchair and create anything you want and generate loads of money. And that's not how it works. You have to actually do something. And the idea of generating these symbols or sigils that are metaphysically attached to the thing you meditated on, the symbols are a visual reminder to you to do the things you need to do in order to achieve that goal, okay? So that's what they don't tell you in the secret law of attraction. They like to appeal to laziness and greed, it appears. Right, another method of developing more interesting ideas is through symbolic representation. So whatever you're going to design, symbolize it first, and you might come up with more interesting ideas. But my favourite one by far, which is actually very simple, is using nonsense and comedy, which is quite surprising. But for example, I told you about my design degree experience and my tutor who said I can't design a 5-dimensional object. So I had to downgrade, and I said, okay, I'm going to design a lunchbox for my major project. And then I went, right, fuck you, I'm going to design a lunchbox for a radiator. No, for a penguin. I'm going to design a lunchbox for a penguin. But through doing that, if you design a lunchbox for a penguin or for a radiator or any inanimate, any random object, you're going to come up with ideas that you would never have come up with otherwise. You'll be thinking about children and what they want and their needs. But through doing that, I just went and got a Mr. Kipling apple pie box and hung it on a radiator and said, right, that's my lunch, that's my radiator, there's its lunchbox. But then I started taking this Mr. Kipling apple pie box to bits and making little toys out of it. So I made little boats out of the foil trays, and they used to have a plastic red lining in it, and I made some infrared glasses out of that. And then I realised what I'd done is I had made some toys out of a lunchbox. So that gave me the idea of designing a children's lunchbox that doubles as a toy. And I designed one such that a train track would come out of the lunchbox, join two other kids' lunchboxes, and they would move the train around and use it to share food. So they could put a piece of chocolate in it and then deliver it to another kid, that kind of thing. So I got a really nice idea from doing something stupid. And that was a bit of a fuck you to my tutor, so I quite enjoyed that. I wrote my dissertation on the subject of multidimensional design, and he reviewed it for me, did the first review, and he said it was a big F with no redeeming features. But when I submitted it, I scored a first for it. So it's just an example of how students and people in university are being suppressed There are forces trying to stop people being creative when they actually are. Okay. Right, what else have we got? Oh yeah, the other one is, obviously there's loads of techniques, I'm just giving you a few, but another technique of enhancing creativity is psychic powers, which is something that I don't have, but that's access to another dimension and new ideas. Okay. Right, I've got a little quote here. Censorship is an attack on creativity. Creativity is a lack of fear. Fear is the opposite of love. Censorship is therefore an attack on love. And artificial intelligence, I believe, is loveless. Okay. I just wrote on the train as I was coming up here a little conclusion to this section, which is the ultimate creative tool is fearlessness. Fearlessness makes a person peerless. We become more creative by rising above social pressures and refusing to conform. Love wins always. Okay, so that's multidimensional design. I've got a shorter section now on the metaphysics of touch. So the word meta means beyond physics, so it's beyond the physical. And this title was inspired by when I learnt massage, Indian head massage at City College in Brighton. It was only when I left and started practicing, I was having loads of ideas myself and thinking, why didn't they teach us this stuff? They just taught us a physical routine and that was it. They didn't tell us anything about the importance of what the mind is doing when you are giving a massage. So the purpose of what I'm doing here now is to elevate the quality of touch, and particularly for massage practice, but for touch in general. And it's particularly applicable to tantric massage, which obviously relates to this exhibition. So I'm just going to share with you some ideas that the professional schools don't teach. Okay? So I've shortened this quite a lot. I normally go into a lot of detail about things you can do to set up the experience in terms of what type of music to use and scents, incense, that sort of thing. But I've just reduced it to a few ideas here for this presentation. First of all, ideally, it needs to be a natural skill. So some people do have a natural skill for massage, and that's a very good start. But passion is important as well, that you're not just doing it for money. When money's involved, there's less love involved in it. Okay? And it's also an advantage to be sensitive to energy. Some people naturally are. If you're not, then one thing you can do is become Reiki tuned, and that makes you it can make you a lot more sensitive to energy. I was Reiki tuned about 5 years ago, and for the first 2 years I didn't feel anything, and then people started feeling things from me, and I didn't know why. I didn't think about what I was doing. They were having experiences, so it was just happening by default without me knowing how or why, what I was doing. A few tips about how to elevate an experience of touch is, first of all, one good way is to be in nature rather than indoors. Not always good in this country, but if you can, be in nature, and being barefoot when you're giving a massage. Be barefoot, you're connected to the earth. It's good for your health in general to be barefoot on the earth. And switch off all electrical equipment. Sometimes when you go for a massage now, they're playing music on their mobile phone, and it's quite awful. Some people are very sensitive to EMF radiation. And meditate before. before the session as well, puts you into a deeper state. It's a good idea to do a practice like meditation, qigong, yoga before as well. But the most important thing in touch is presence. Okay? You're there, your mind's not off over there. And there's a quote from Keith Richards. What was it he said? Someone was interviewing Keith Richards and they said, "What do you think of when you're on stage?" And he said, "I don't think, I feel." So he's totally present, it's just feeling. And on the subject of Keith Richards, that reminds me, I heard that there are only 3 things that will survive a nuclear holocaust. 1 is cockroaches, 2 is McDonald's Happy Meals, and 3 Keith Richards. Yes. Oh, comedy doesn't go down well here. Okay, I get it. I was wondering if there's such a thing as a McDonald's unhappy meal. Anyway, another good tip is don't try to remember or follow a routine. Just let it happen. I never do the same routine when I'm giving a massage. I just, whatever comes, that's what I do. I don't follow a routine. I remember when I was trained, everyone was trying to remember their routine and not get it right. But then you're thinking, you're not feeling. If someone's not present, you can feel it in their touch. And one obvious way that happens, and this is probably the simplest and the best tip for improving a massage practice, is slow down. Simple as that, just slow down. Because I notice that when someone has sped up, it means their mind's gone off. Okay, when you slow down, you become a lot more focused. And even better, to become even more focused, pause. Okay, so you may be massaging someone's temples, and just stop for a few seconds, and it totally changes their state, and it puts them into a state of meditation. It makes them a lot deeper. Okay, so slow down and pause and be present. They are the 3 very simple but best tips for improving the quality of touch. Another good method is closing your eyes. When you take away some senses, other senses are heightened. So close your eyes and feel. Just use your hands to feel. It does make a difference. Practice on yourself as well. By practicing on yourself, you learn a lot more because you're feeling what you're doing. Okay, that's another good tip. And another good tip is don't be afraid to be sensual. And that's often mistaken for sexual, but you do have to be careful with that one, that the person is consensual to it. It's a bit of a grey area because it can lead to unwanted attention. But it's a shame that we can't be, it's more difficult we can't be sensual in a professional massage because it's regarded to be sexual, and that's not right. So it can be done, but it needs to be with a pre-arranged conversation that's okay. The opposite to, I've said the idea of closing your eyes to make you more focused and feel more, but then there's the opposite of having your eyes open based upon the idea that, the possibility or idea that we all think that the world comes into our eyes, but there is the idea that we send something out of our eyes as well. Energy goes out from our eyes when we look at something. So who has ever felt eyes burning into their back? They know someone's looking at them from behind. Has anyone ever felt that? A few people. Okay. Well, whenever I'm walking down the street and I see a nice arse in front of me, they always turn around. So they're feeling it. So it's just a suggestion that something non-physical comes out of your eyes, and you're connecting with someone by looking at them. And you can use that in massage as well. So combine it with compassion, use your eyes to give with your eyes as well as your mind and your hands. Okay? Oh, this is my favourite one. I'm really proud of this one. This is octopus theory. So this is the idea that the octopus is a brilliant symbol for this, because octopuses are highly intelligent creatures, very mystical. They have 3 hearts, they have blue-green blood, and the most interesting thing is that their brain, or central nervous system, is spread throughout their bodies. So ours is majorly contained within our head. That's our control centre, and that is true of the octopus as well. However, there is the idea that the octopus tentacles can think independently as well. Okay? And the reason this is a good symbol is because I just came up with this idea that, for example, let's say in the middle of the room there's a ball of energy. That is the universal intelligence represented by the octopus mind, his head. Okay? So that's there in the middle of the room. That's God. That's Great Spirit. That's universal intelligence. And the tentacles, so let's say I'm one of the tentacles. So God, Great Spirit in the middle, is looking up through me, out of my eyes, at you, at the same time as it's looking up, out through your eyes at me. So it's looking at, using us to look at itself. Okay, does that make sense? I explained that well. I think that's a really clear analogy of possibly how we are connected to Great Spirit or God. And it relates to the idea that the purpose of the universe is for God to understand himself. I don't mean to be sexist there, it's just easy to say that. Through us, through human beings, God is working itself out, and we are part of it. So looking up through my eyes at you, at the same time he's looking up through your eyes at me. Okay? And you can use that idea, meditate on that idea when you are giving someone a massage. Okay? Imagine that they are part of that, they're part of you, they're part of God, and you're connecting to them through God, and there's a space in between both of you, and God is in the middle. And alchemy relates to this as well. Like I said, alchemy is to do with the space in between, where the magic happens. So you can put your attention in between your hand and their body, okay? So your mind is in the space in between, and that will create a deeper connection as well. Another method you can do is meditate, a bit more simple, is just imagine your mind is the universe. So you're extending your mind and your thoughts to the edge of the universe, and through that you are giving, and all that knowledge and energy is coming through your body, through your hands, through the space in between and into their body. That's a more simple method to use. Right, I think I'm pretty much done. Yeah. Alright, yeah, I'm going to leave it there. I'll just say I'm open to anyone that's got any questions about it, like individually, not, well, we could do it sat here, but if anyone wants to ask any questions or share any of their ideas, and I'm happy to give out, I've got some business cards here, I'm happy to give out contact details if anyone wants to give feedback, and I do Reiki, Indian head massage and body work, if anyone wants to book any of that. And yeah, I'm very open to feedback. So please get in touch if you want to. And thank you for coming, and enjoy the rest.